Welcome to episode 7 of season 3 of Relics of War, the show about Guild Wars 2, and the Guild Wars community. I'm your host, Erik, also Shongaku in game, and you can follow me at Shongaku or at Relics of War. I am joined this week by the inimitable Evie. How are you doing this week, Evie?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad to be on the show, because, I have nothing better to do.
Are you saying you have no life?
Maybe.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have you on board. And our new sort of pseudo-lead editor. Not Suedo lead editor. There's some people who say that. Yeah.
I'm guilty of that.
On Relics of War's website is Kate, also at Dan Viola's and in-game at Spirit, or actually, what is your in-game?
Spirit Face.
Spirit Face, there we go. All right. And you guys are both thieves, and I am, of course, a necromancer, because that's awesome. So, anyways, we have a ton of stuff that happened this week. And so we're going to get right into discussing the pirate content that's been coming out. Why don't you take us through the... You guys have both run the dungeon, correct?
Yes, but I actually have not completed it.
Spirit, have you finished it yet?
Yeah, I have.
How many times?
Twice.
Yeah, I'm at 2 as well. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's hard, surprisingly. Relics of War runs a lot of dungeons, and it took me 2 tries of just absolute wiping. The first boss wiped the floor with us maybe 16 times in those 2 tries, and then we gave up, and finally I got a good run where we made it through. But
it wasn't Relics of War that got you through.
No, it wasn't Relics of War. I cried out for help from Twit Guild, and they descended from on high in their Twitter trees and saved me.
Saved by the birds. Man,
yep.
That dungeon run really went to the birds. Sorry. I apologize to the internet. What is that you're holding, Evie? I'm just sidetracked. So anyways, there's sort of 3 boss encounters, I guess. Would you consider that first event where you get in there and they shoot the rock and they shoot the fireballs at you and they have the waves of enemies? Would you consider that a boss-like event, or would you say that that's more of just a advanced set of trash?
Advanced trash.
Yeah, I didn't consider it anything more than an event.
Okay, so the dungeon's been out for a week, and it's going to be out for another week, so we're just going to do full-on spoilers for this thing. You start out, you swim through a little area with a bunch of exploding mines, and then you fight through some trash.
To get through without dying.
That's true, you die every time. It's hilarious, and it's not even because you're on a thief.
No, because I actually haven't done that on my thief, because I am not that masochistic.
Oh, that's right, you bring your Ellie and your Mesmer. And/or... Yeah, those are good classes for that dungeon. So you go through that, and then you clear a bunch of trash, and then you get to your first sort of serious encounter. And the interesting thing is what'd you guys think about the stacking of mechanics? Because the first encounter teaches you the fireball mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you, Evie, tell us about how the dungeon... Have you been to the final boss fight?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually haven't. The thing with the final boss fight, though, is I've seen the first phase of it, where you have to, get the boss and, run her through the electric field and all that. But, excuse me, I haven't gotten to the, let's dodge fire for 3 minutes part.
That's a fantastic part. Spirit, why don't you tell us about how the dungeon teaches people to play Guild Wars? Or at least play that dungeon.
Okay, so... starting from the mines, there's another quick event where you have to run through some electrical traps, and then immediately at the end of that, there's a room where cannons face you at the front, and mobs are firing cannons at you while you fight several waves of trash. And those cannon barrages come back in the final fight, so that's one mechanic from the final fight that you're taught beforehand. And then You progress beyond that room to an Asuran lab where you clear maybe 6 ads and then focus on the boss. The boss goes invulnerable and begins to spawn rotating walls at you. There's a low one, which is the first phase, which you have to jump on boxes to jump over. You can't run through it or anything. 1 or 2 hits from it will take you down. You can survive if it passes through you. Sometimes it's kind of iffy and it's a little bit not consistent on that end. Once you down the golem in there, you get a large wall, which goes around. It's slower than the small wall, but you can outrun it. And then once you down the golems or the ads in that phase, both walls spawn at once. So it's continuously layering mechanics. And as soon as you take down the golems with the 2 walls, the fight's over. You don't actually have to damage the boss again. He disappears at 3/4. He gets electrocuted.
He doesn't just disappear.
No, he gets gibleted. Like if
Yeah.
you're watching at the end, the machine above him just. Evie, tell us what happens. Yeah, it's hilarious. I read something that like you should totally pay attention to the boss in the middle. I'm like, oh, okay. So like the last time I went through, I was looking at it, I was like he splatters. Like the glass that shatters around him just boom. Like wow, it's fantastic.
I was
I'm
half
glad.
expecting blood.
So after that, then you advance through a lot more trash. You get to the last boss fight. The trash, I guess they're not really teaching you anything there, although they are teaching you that lightning is horrible.
The strikers.
Oh my goodness, strikers are amazing. So much damage. Lightning lasers of doom. But you get to the last boss, and what sort of mechanics have we seen before that sort of fall into this boss fight?
There's actually not.
Stay out of bad.
Yeah, I guess the fireballs. Well, the thing is, they have the fireballs at the beginning, and then right after the fireballs, that fireball fight, or actually right before that fireball fight, they had those glowing walls that you had to run through, that sort of taught you these walls are bad, and then you get to the boss fight, and you're like, oh, those walls are bad, and then you go to the next event and it's all that fire on the ground, and they're like, this is how the pattern drops on the ground, you should pay attention to that, because the fire does drop in a pattern, and then they stack and layer, and I think there's like 3 cans, and so you get to the final boss fight and there's all of it, and then you're like, oh, here is the fireballs that I avoided in that one fight. They're a little bit closer together, but it's the same general pattern, and this is what I need to avoid in phase 2. And it's horrible, as Hunter will attest, because it takes 30 years for the fire to end.
Yes, it does.
So the boss fight, what did you guys think about this dungeon compared to Flame and Frost?
The first boss fight, the one with the walls, is really, really well designed. Like, it beats out pretty much any other boss. The second boss takes way too long. Way too long.
I think it's a bit rough that you can't I think one of the failings of that boss, I think it's a very interesting boss fight. I think that it adds interesting mechanics and it gets you doing a lot more. Like, there is an actual control aspect to that fight. I think that fight has the most... is one of the few fights where control is a critical aspect. Unfortunately, they don't give you a lot of control initially. Like, you have to get lucky with where he drops the lightning down, and then you have to get her to run through the lightning. Now, there is the technique of everyone grouping up. Like, he drops the fire, and then everyone collapses on top of each other, and then if you have, like, a ranger or a good healer, what you do is you drop whatever AoE heals you have, and then you have people just drop all of their AoE blast finishers to keep everyone healed while she comes up and, like, nukes you with all of her bleeds. But then that'll guarantee the lightning would hit at that one spot. But I think that might be the... So that's like a weird support thing that you could do to guarantee, and then after that, she can be controlled after she's lost, I think, like 3 stacks? That'd be really risky. I'm not sure if that's a good tactic. We haven't done that.
She can be controlled after she loses 1 stack, but she only begins taking conditions at 7 stacks, I believe.
Ah, okay. So you can immobilize Can you immobilize, or or is that knockback and pulls that can happen at 9 stacks?
I think it's knockback and pulls, but stun
Okay.
and daze, of course, and all the controls.
I did find that Ranger was amazingly useful in that dungeon. Like, Ranger with a Thief was fantastic in that fight. Because...
It was the one time I actually felt proud to play a Thief recently, because I was pulling off some excellent stealth reses, and she would not teleport to you even if you're the farthest away when you're stealth.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of a...
Well, you and Psychov were both having some fantastic actual combo play as well. What were you guys doing specifically?
So he was dropping the Ranger heal field, which is really strong, and whenever that went up, I would drop several cluster bombs, as many as I could get off in the water field, just to heal everyone up, and it was working remarkably well.
It was amazing, and then he DC'd, and then we had to 4-man it for the last two and a half phases, which was sad.
And succeeded.
We did.
After not succeeding,
It does. Oh my goodness. If we ever actually get sponsored by Simply Orange, the first thing I'm going to do is get everyone real microphones, and the second thing I'm going to do is get Psychov something that doesn't run on hamsters. I can't actually promise that, Psychov. I could be lying, because I'd probably just pay off all of our debts. Anyways, we actually aren't in debt on this show. Random side note. So I like the dungeon. Better or worse than Flame and Frost, or different with some things good? Or actually, no, let's forget that. That's a stupid question. What were the best elements of this dungeon?
I would say the new mechanics, and in general, the pacing is much better, except for the last boss.
All right. And so Flame and Frost, what mechanics? If you could take both of them and create an unholy amalgamation of the two that women looked away from and children would run away from. Wow, what is the Oedipus statement? You know, like, women fear to look... Anyways, I don't know. I'm trying to be cultured. If you could make... Yeah, apparently not. If you could combine the two, what elements would you take from each one?
The bosses, and just stick them in a gauntlet.
Oh, well, it's a good thing we have fractals then.
Yeah, or I don't know, maybe if we were going to combine them, I would make branching bosses so you could end up at either one. I guess, yeah.
Would you make it where you could choose which boss to hit? Like, because I know that World of Warcraft has...
Frost did well was the final boss in Flame and Frost. You could determine what your second phase was going to be like by choosing the first boss. The problem with that is it's usually gonna be one or the other, because one drops faster or the second phase is easier. It's always gonna fall into one eventually once people have the dungeon run down. But that element of choice and strategy to your boss fight was really nice.
Yeah.
What I'd really like to see is for them to do a council fight that is very distinctly harder depending on what order you do it in, but there's achievements for doing it in certain orders.
And scaling rewards, because they did have that in World of Warcraft, didn't they, where you killed them in this order and you got the best rewards drop. That's it. So essentially like a in-game hard mode.
Basically.
Where you can like, this is harder, so cool. Your chair is squeaking, Evie. Stop.
My back was starting to hurt.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Speaking of hard mode, the difficulty of this dungeon compared to the other
Story
content, I think, is a little bit high. In my opinion, it was too high for this type of content. Like, I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed it, and it was good content for me. But as a PvEer seeking more of a challenge, where it's kind of the role of a story dungeon is to give story, not to be an explorable dungeon, which is a challenge. There was a clear distinction between the two in design philosophy, but it feels to me like it's more on the explorable end of things. And so the story part of Aetherblade Retreat is not going to be accessible to people who might want to experience the story but aren't necessarily good at PvE. This is a problem with like Ra being the last story mission where you could do it solo all the way up through and you could experience the story yourself, and then suddenly you're forced into group play.
In an MMO, by George, I'm forced to group with people.
It's not that you're forced to group with people, it's that suddenly it changes what you can expect from the game.
Yeah, like the thing is, like for 80 levels, basically, the personal story is, oh, you can do this by yourself, and then it's just like the last mission. Oh, you need 4 more people if you ever want to be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is that maybe a way to is? I think that's more of a way of getting players into saying, look, you've soloed this, which is weird because this is an MMO, and you should probably have grouped up at least once in your level 80's life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they have all these events that bring people together. So there's a lot of group play, not necessarily organized group play, leading up to Aura, and I think that I would hope it's not a huge jump for people, especially since it's an MMO. You're kind of supposed to group up with people.
The thing with MMOs is that sure, it's massively multiplayer and whatnot, but there's a very, very strong demographic for people that play by themselves in these games.
Yeah,
That's
I guess.
why WoW has dailies and
That's a good point.
Finder and all that.
Which, actually, I suppose that's the big thing, is there's not a really good LFG system in Guild Wars 2, which they are working on it, but we don't know when or how it's going to change. So, if they had that, would that have been less of an issue, you think, for the story mode of Aura?
If they had
no, it doesn't change the
LFG
fact
system,
that it's suddenly...
you're in queue.
Go ahead, Evie. Start, and then we'll go to Kate.
I was just gonna say is, they had an LFG system. Sure, it'd make it easier to get it done, but I don't think that means it should have been done that way, because personal story is supposed to be personal story. It's about your character. That's it.
Absolutely.
Interesting. See, and I'm more of the I can understand that, but I always liked in Guild Wars 1, like, the missions, and I always approach personal story thinking of it more like the missions, and I was always like, why can't I have, like, a group of NPCs that follow me that I customize and, like, level them up through the personal story, like I did with like, Koss and Maloney and insert Talcora and Master of Whispers and all these heroes that you had traveling with you through Nightfall. I was like, why couldn't I just get a group like that? And then when you actually move into playing with other people, everyone's group that they've sort of built up over it, joins together, and you have 5 players and 30 NPCs all just marching on Zaitan. Then Destiny's Edge shows up and they're like, let's do stuff. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, I wanted the personal story to be on the scale of group missions, and that's kind of how I went into it originally as well, and so it disappointed me because it wasn't missions and we didn't have that kind of play. But the fact is, it's not missions, and so you can't just take one at the end and go, this is what it is.
Yeah.
It should have been...
I mean, if you're going to use a certain
it should have been soloable by
for
yourself,
a very specific part of the game.
You should have been... There's really no excuse for just suddenly changing up the mechanics at the end. We don't excuse that anywhere else.
It's true.
So the personal story should be no exception.
We had a massive digression there talking about personal story. Jumping Puzzle just came out this yesterday morning. What do you think?
I've been hearing that it's as hard as Mad King's Clock Tower, but that's
it's not
true.
What?
There's
Seriously?
No sense of urgency. No.
Man, yeah. Who would say that? That's just weird.
It's hard to know where to place it on a scale of difficulty. It's certainly one of the harder ones. It's probably the biggest one. I can't think of any bigger ones in terms of the actual area the jumping puzzle constitutes. Maybe, I guess, Eternal Battlegrounds was probably bigger because it takes up so much of the zone, but not as hard as Mad King's Clock Tower. There's a lot of misdirection and a lot of you can get to things you don't necessarily think you can, and there's some kind of sneaky stuff. Like, you have to go up, and then you have to double back down underneath and up and around, and then it looks like you can continue. There's more beyond the end of the jumping puzzle for an additional achievement, which I have not done because I was done when I got to the chest.
The goggles one was hardcore, actually. I did that. I did have to get the Dolphy guide for where to jump off. Because I did not want to have to die again and re-climb up that. But getting up to it, I managed to get up to it with a little bit of help from Cole. It's a bit sketchy. I did die once and had to get ported back up by Cole. Because he was on his Mesmer, which Mesmer's for the win.
Mm-hmm.
That was an exciting jumping puzzle. I'm a fan. I liked it.
The ads in there would have been frustrating if I didn't do it in the crush of millions of people, because I did it about 3 hours after it was opened up to everyone.
Yeah.
And there were people everywhere. This is the first time we've seen like this massive crush of people in the open world, I think. Well, not the first time we've seen it in the open world, but in a jumping puzzle. And of course, everyone insisted on bringing their Norn or Char. And there was a lot of people who were helpfully using swiftness and not being so helpful.
Swiftness trolls?
If you do go into a jumping puzzle and you do use swiftness, try and apply it in a way that it only applies to you, because if you're applying swiftness and everyone else around you is suddenly going 33% faster, it's not helping people. You're screwing with their jump distance, and it's not nice.
You might think that you're helping, but it's like when you pick up a cat with a broken bone. It might be purring, but that's because it hates you right now.
That's a pretty darn accurate way of describing it.
As I'm slowly fixing the internet. All right, so what? Have you guys seen how World vs. World has been affected by the new professions?
I have not. I have not been in World v. World for
Wait. There's new
continuing a long
professions?
time.
And by professions, I mean profession. I don't know. It's like necromancer's a brand new profession.
I imagine necromancers are even stronger than before, and Indo is quite pleased with the changes. As far as I know, I don't know if they were significantly altered in World v. World or not.
All I know is that thieves are more useless than they were before.
Yay! All right, so we will need to grab a dubby-dubber at some point to actually tell us about how it all shakes out in dubby-dub.
Yep.
All right. Spirit, you're looking at the show notes. Take us to the next one while I continue to fix our screen.
So earlier this week, I can't remember exactly what day it was, there was an interview with the French website with Mike Zadarajani, who is at the Armory. The article seems to have disappeared off the internet. My Google failed me. I searched for about an hour looking for even I was going to look for a translated link, didn't find it, and then didn't find the
Google
original
have it
article
cached?
even. But the main things to take away from this article, there's 3 things. The Mad King's Clock Tower is coming back, which didn't surprise me at all. I would expect nothing less. Guild Wars 2's take on raids is coming soon, TM. There's going to be something, we don't know what it is, but it's coming soon, and it's going to be for a group of more than 5 people. The third thing, which is the most important thing, is that housing and guild halls are going to come at the same time, but there's no ETA. The reason this is so important is because housing itself has never been confirmed to be a thing that's going to be in Guild Wars 2.
Actually,
Obviously.
They said it before
sure?
launch. That was like their first thing that they said. When someone asked about housing and guild halls, they said that they would come at the same time.
Have they?
Yes.
To
So
my
that is
knowledge,
all
this the
that
first time.
it's old news, but it's so old that most people probably don't know it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it has been confirmed. So
Yes.
then it really is nothing new, but it's a reiteration of things we.
Well, the
kind of
more
did
than
already
5
know.
New to a lot
people,
of people.
the more than 5 people is significant, though. Also, Evie, can you turn down your microphone a little bit? I'm getting some feedback.
Boop.
We're professionals. All right, that's it. I'm getting you guys like real internet and microphones. Anyways, this is going to be an interesting episode. I'm interested about the fact that we are looking at large-scale groups in an instance situation. Were you guys expecting that their answer to rating would be that, or did you think it was just going to be more complex 5-man content?
I saw it coming. I'm not gonna lie, because there's such a huge demand for it.
Yeah,
they have to evolve. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Yep.
It's nice to know.
And it's not like it didn't exist in Guild Wars before. So
It's true.
I mean,
So he was asked point blank about it on an awesome interview on MMORPG.com with questions from people like Ravius and Bagpuss from of a blog, and our own Hunter from Hunter's Insight. He managed to sneak some questions in there. And one of the questions that someone asked him, I wasn't sure exactly who, they basically asked him, so what's this large group content? And his answer was, we're talking about it, but we're not ready to say anything about it. The number of ums to actual words from Chris Whiteside went exponentially increased during that section, which was hilarious because it was like, oh, he doesn't really want to say anything about it, but he kind of does, I think. So he was interrupting himself a lot, I think. But nice to know that they're working on that. Another interesting thing from that interview, do we have that actually linked in here anywhere? Are we going to talk about that?
I don't think so, but we can. Go ahead.
Okay, one of the big things that they mentioned is that over the last 2 weeks, and I know Dragon Season retweeted this, they have been discussing town clothes in depth and their function in the game. Obviously, they're discussing it, so any implementation is going to take a while, and it's going to be a lot of different work behind the scenes to figure out what actually balances, but that sounds like we're going to be moving towards town clothes in combat.
hey, I wouldn't say that.
Yeah,
Could be.
I didn't
I'd say
actually
we're
listen
looking at town clothes becoming something useful, but not necessarily in combat.
Yeah,
How would you?
it could also have to do with methods of distribution and pricing, which
Okay.
we'll be looking at as well.
Okay, so how would you make town clothes useful, Evie, before we go after distribution? How would you make town clothes useful?
How?
Okay, mounts. So what? Would they be like your speed boost mount? Like getting on the broom would actually let you move around faster?
Yeah, and as soon as you get in combat, you get knocked off of it. You can already keep buying town clothes, so bam.
All right. So, Kate, how would you think that if they're discussing it seriously, how do you think it would end up being distribution, that sort of thing, for the town clothes?
Hopefully, it would be the Guild Wars 1 style of you buy the town clothes, you have the skin. Instead of you get one item, if it's deleted, it's gone forever, and you're out however many dollars you spent on it. That would go a long way towards making them more desirable items because you could reuse the skins. Additionally, it has that kind of storage so that if you do lose them or you want to use it again, you can get rid of it. Because currently, if you buy town, you're only going to want to buy maybe one set of town clothes because you know where to put them. Like, you just accumulate town clothes. There's no storage for them. And with the amount of town clothes and people collecting, it's getting pretty high, and we just plain need more space. Even if you have your bank slots maxed out, I think the town clothes could take up two bank slots by themselves. Yeah.
So
too.
we'll come back to that in a second, in a little bit. Remind me when I start talking about the home instance.
Okay.
But we're going to move on. There was an interview about first-person view. Well, I did not actually get around to reading that today. Walk me through that, whoever linked it.
Well, basically, these people were just like, what's the answer to all these people complaining that first-person view isn't in the game? And he went on to go how it's not that we don't want to address it, it's that we're prioritizing other things that we think are a little more important. But now that we have, these teams set up where they have their priorities, they have this and that, set up. I'm sorry if you hear laughing.
We get a front row seat to Evie's family.
It's not family. It's just my dad.
Oh, wait.
Very sorry.
He's not family? Man.
Well,
how does that make you feel? No. Moving right along. So, yeah, first-person shooter, people. And by first-person shooter, view.
Eventually. So, it's just a matter of priority.
What they talked about as a solution was that if you stayed still, your character would disappear, and then if you moved, your character would be redrawn. I'm not necessarily a fan of that solution, because what I want in first person is to have my character's perspective, not just have not my character in the screenshots. If I want to do that, I can do that through a number, like sitting or lying down or cleverly hiding my character that way.
Well, it sounds like for you, there is a hacked client.
I don't want to get banned.
Yeah. That's sad. I can have first-person view and actual reasonable scroll distance and be banned, or I cannot have those things. It's a little bit sad, but it's okay. I think we'll survive. Hopefully they will figure it out and they'll realize that, oh, we actually do just want to be able to scroll in and move around. Because, recording video of things going on, like machinima, kind of needs that first-person view or a detached camera. Mm-hmm. And if we do, like, for example, Rangers, give the pets, like, you can do Eagle Eye or something and go into your pet view. And then if you had first person for that, then you could do videos and, like, have a mobile camera and various other things from different perspectives. Anyways, I guess they probably are not prioritizing machinima, which is sad. They had... On things that they are prioritizing, they are working very hard, actually, right now, on PvP and on getting that publicized. ESL had a tournament this weekend, which is the European Electronic Sporting League, actually, European side. So it was a bunch of European guilds, including Team Paradigm, has returned to apparently play.
Win everything.
Yeah, well,
again.
So, Spirit, why don't you actually were able to get in? I didn't have time to watch it this weekend. What was it like? You saw a few matches, right?
Yeah, it was. I was watching it on Blue's stream, but Blue was not actually hosting because his computer was infested with a nefarious virus and destroyed everything he loved. But it was Grouch along with someone I can't remember, who was one of the top players from a Euro team that was not competing in the tournament. And it was pretty good shoutcasting. It was understandable to me as a PvE player, although I have played a little bit of PvP, not competitively, but I've been in there enough to understand what was going on. And so that was pretty cool. There was about 1,800 viewers on my stream. I only watched the first 2 rounds, so I missed the semifinals and the finals, so I don't know how many people were there at the end.
That usually ramps up to about double that.
Yeah.
In most events.
From my understanding, it was quite successful.
Cool.
But, yeah.
So there was a Necromancer meta, which for me is amazing and wonderful. What was the issue with the Necromancer meta, though? This could actually be a problem, from what I hear.
From my understanding, I don't know necessarily if this was a big deal in the tournaments. There was a team that did run 2 Necros in the tournament itself, and at the beginning of that match, the PvP guy or the guy who was not shoutcaster but a member of the team, was talking about how when they go into queue for their games, people call the Necromancer advantage, and they'll say, oh, you have 3 Necromancers and we only have 2. You guys have the Necromancer advantage, you're going to win. So that could be... It's currently into the win all profession tier, and that's something we don't want to see.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's necessarily accurate at top tier from what I've seen playing my Necromancer. Like, they're really good, and they have some amazing diversity. Like, I used a weapon set that I had never used before on the final boss fight. I switched to, well, I'd used it, but I hadn't really seriously used it as a, like, oh, this is a viable tactic. I went Dagger Focus on the last boss in the Aetherblade Retreat because of the life drain on the second one, and my life drain was like 200 health per tick, and you get about 6 to 8 ticks, I think, out of the thing if you actually stay within range. So it's reasonable healing, and it's a fairly fast recharge. But that actually kept me up long enough, and it negated the issue that my character was having with just constantly losing health because I apparently suck as a necromancer and getting rid of conditions. But the necromancers have definitely got a lot more build diversity and a lot more options, which I think is fantastic because I didn't feel like I was gimped by switching to dagger focus.
I really think that at this point with SPVP, because there was so much done to necromancers with this last patch, that it's less they're overpowered and more just people haven't learned how to deal with them yet.
Yeah, and I think that a good hammer, like things that I have seen that are weaknesses for the necromancer, is a good hammer warrior or guardian is going to mess with you hardcore, because if they can knock you down, they have a lot of control options for you. Knock you down, daze you. It's basically, and for example, the new Mesmer with their interrupt builds, because a lot of the necro stuff, the most powerful necro stuff, is going to be channeled, long cast time, and so, like for example, their Signet is 3 seconds now. Their Res Sig takes forever to get off. They doubled the time to cast it. It's just like you sit there and you're like, oh, going to sleep. And so I think that once they figure out the meta and once they figure out countering it, it will be more straightforward, because it doesn't feel overpowered to me. It just feels really nice, which maybe that is overpowered because I'm terrible at games. So moving on, there's some other interesting stuff happening in the PvP world as people try and spread the knowledge about it. Wooden Potatoes and Matt Visual, who just joined Guildcast and is adding a lot of good information to that show, are doing a PvP series. Why don't you tell us about that, Spirit?
Currently, only the first video. It's about 13 minutes long, and it's very basic. It's how to get to the PvP lobby, kind of like the game type, but they want it to be a progression from very basic, how to get there, to being actually a really competent PvPer. And this, obviously they only have the first episode up, so I can't tell you, how effective it's going to be. But that type of resource to get people into PvE is really good, because what they were talking about on the ESL stream is there's a curve. Like, the game type is really easy to get into and to understand, but to go from that very basic knowledge to being competent, there's quite a learning curve, and there's not... Go ahead, Evie.
I was just going to say, you're exactly right, and a large part of that is because of the different maps. They add a lot of diversity into... a huge part of the game type is movement. And because of the different maps, you have to know how to get around all of them and how to efficiently move around all of them. And then there's, builds, how your stats work, different utilities, refining your reflexes. It just goes on and on and on. And a resource like this is basically priceless when it comes to building a community for PvP, because it helps bridge that gap between I want to start playing and how do I put this?
I'm not really completely useless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that growth of competency. So this is going to be growing people into hopefully more competent PvPers then, Spirit?
Yeah, that's the goal, is by the end to have looked at builds, map mechanics, strategy, and so that people who have watched the series are competent players.
That'd be interesting to see. And is that would actually be also, you were noted in the show notes that you'd like to see that for World versus World. That would actually be really nice. Maybe I will talk to Indo. Yeah, that would. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, thoughts going through head. So some of these show notes I've not seen before. So okay. Sorry. But that's okay, because I've been extremely busy at work, which is fantastic. It's way better than the points in time where I'm just sitting there and falling asleep. So, and then like filling out information on Relics of War. July 2nd, they gave us today, they updated the page on our website, or on Guild Wars 2, with new information about about content that is coming out. If I can finish sentences, I would like Evie to tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. So originally, this information was slated to come out in mid-January, but someone caught it.
Wait,
it was,
what?
Yes, the page was originally dated for something in the teens. I can't actually remember it off the top of my head, but it was actually changed to the 2nd.
Wait.
Here comes the 2nd. What?
It was supposed to come out in January.
That's
Not Jan. Oh my God, January. June. I got the J right.
Okay,
July?
I was thinking, holy smokes, so they had this planned for how long? That's impressive. So, okay, so June.
Yeah, mid-June.
July.
But they... Jay! I are a professional. Anywho.
Oh, so it was supposed to be mid-July initially.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And lo and behold, here comes the 2nd. A lot of people thought it was just a typo, that they were actually changing it to 20-something. And there's this new page. It is called the Bazaar of the Four Winds, which had me thinking, oh, look, Tengu. I was wrong. Or am I? Anywho, there's going to be a new PvP map because they're, you know, I'm sorry, I looked at chat.
That one J month. Good work. Excellent, Revan. That is, yes.
Okay. There's going to be a new PvP map, which, looking at the video, looks like there's going to be a lot of verticality, more so than any other existing map, with jumping pads.
I love me some verticality.
Which I'm probably going to go into a rant eventually about how Portal is getting to be a little bit too more important. Other than that, there's going to be a new minigame.
How? Wait. Like, Portal is the metagame right now, and it has always been the metagame for serious PvPers. How is it getting more important?
Because with the jumping pads, if my theory is correct, because I'm going completely by the video at this point, Portal will not take into account any kind of verticality.
No, it's got a range. It's got a vertical range now.
Oh yeah, but it could be above you in like a completely different room, but it would still work.
Yep.
As long as it's within range.
Yes, but it's got a spherical range.
Well, still. It can be under you or below you.
Yeah.
That doesn't really exist in any of the existing maps right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that necessarily changes things, because think of the thief with their infiltrator arrow. They just look up and they can shoot through into ground above
There's only
them.
very specific places you can do that.
Yeah, you have to be able to walk there. And then there are a few exceptions to that rule, but generally, if you want to be able to teleport with the thief, you have to be able to get there by foot. Whereas
Exactly.
with the portal, that's not true.
Ah. Yeah, but you have to place it, and then you have to get down to or above or up to where you're going. So you have to have someone who's competent for movement on your team. Like, your Mesmer has to be competent to do it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's going to be, I'd say, more important than before to have someone.
You have not watched
competition.
any of the. Have you watched any of the tournament PvP?
Yes, and
Portal makes and breaks those
Very.
matches. I'm not.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that's really going to change anything. I think that it'll still be just important, and it will mean that
Yeah.
you can't be bad at jumping in PvP.
well, I think it's going to be critical at this point.
A lot of those matches filter out maps that are gimmicky. Like you never see the shark map ever.
That's
well,
true.
at that point, why are they releasing a new map?
Well, I think they want to experiment and see how people do things. I mean, it may turn out that, yes, that is a problem, or it may turn out that this is actually a brilliant map and that it is fantastic for people. Which,
I mean,
there's...
it's all skeptics.
Okay, we'll see. I'm gonna be optimistic. What are the weird features of this map, Spirit?
Are we talking about canon or the?
Just
One, the
what
cannon,
are
Skyhammer,
the
that's
new,
what it's
yeah, Skyhammer. What sorts of features are on this Skyhammer?
It, yeah, lots of verticality and a charging lasers. That was I'd heard an Asura announcement, and I'm not sure what the laser actually does. I just watched the video and it didn't explain that much to me. So if anyone
So,
knows, please feel
Evie,
free.
walk us through it.
Okay, so the Skyhammer map is basically this like high-tech Asura lab. It has jump pads, shattering floor panels, and this big laser. You have the 3 points just like any other PvP map, and you can use the cannon against your foes. But we don't really know exactly how that's going to work. It could be that you use the cannon to break the floor, or you can use the cannon to like hit your enemies. We're not really sure at this point. I would really like to see something where it's like, oh, you're standing in this spot, and I happen to have the cannon by floor.
That could be interesting. Like knock entire platforms out of alignment and they turn them sideways or something. Rotating
Yeah.
platforms. Ooh.
Absolutely.
I'm
It gives
assuming-
you the actual control over the map instead of like theoretical control.
Oh, that would be weird.
Which is why I'm like, oh, portals are going to be even more important than they were before because of this like disappearing floor thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think it'll be interesting tactics to see how that works. Like running out onto it and hoping that someone will chase you, and actually like kiting people across collapsing floor and then knocking them back, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there'll be some interesting sub-duels with control players that have knockbacks. Like maybe even Rangers will be useful on that map. do
Rangers
you-
are useful in PvP.
Yeah.
You keep telling
They don't
you
have the
so.
same problems we do. We being PvEers.
Yes. There is an interesting argument for and against them. Obviously not top tier yet, which Necros have finally broken into. Mwahaha. But I think if they continue to do class adjustments like they have been, I think we'll see some interesting class functions. Do you think that we could see map-specific class combos or
Yes.
profession combos for PvP?
Yes, very much so. You saw it even in early beta. Well, not even beta, but like before the game came out, when they were doing like the tournaments in packs and whatnot. When there was only 2 maps, there were the two elementalist, 2 guardian warrior teams for Kylo, because that's what worked the best at that point. And then Fellfire had the Thief Mesmer teams.
Interesting. So, you think we'd ever see that, or do you think that there's more or less...
As the meta develops and people are more refined in what the rules for the professions are, I definitely think so.
Interesting. What do you think about with the... okay, so we've got that map, and that's going to be very interesting for PvP. What other things are we going to be seeing with the Bazaar of the Four Winds?
Well, there's the new mini game, because mini games are fun.
There's actually
And it's
3.
a game.
There's 3 of them.
That we know of or that they talked about. So, well, I don't know why they wouldn't talk about any, but to my understanding, there's Sanctum Sprint, which is talked about in the patch page, which is an interview called it a Mario Kart style race with pickups. So you're running around the track and there's power-ups and you grab them and you use, like, I don't know, your oil slick, whatever they have
It's
there.
elevator racing.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah, it is, isn't it? But running not with beetles that go.
Well, there's like leaping over barriers and flying through the air, as they so say.
I think, I don't know, Bizarre of the Four Winds, and then they say they've got the gymnastic elemental style movement allowing you to traverse cliffs and huge gaps. Are we thinking maybe like, I don't know, almost Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, flying, jumping, backflipping over stuff?
It's the ninjas to Guild Wars' pirates. It's too, yeah. Hopefully.
So
That's
first
what
we
I
have
wanted.
air pirates, and now we have
It's a
elemental
thief
ninjas.
patch. Thieves will be useful.
Actually, I
Just
think
silly.
everyone gets access to the gymnastic skills, Evie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but thieves will feel the coolest.
Until a necromancer goes flying past in Death Shroud doing like quadruple backflips and like grabbing everything around him with Death Shroud 5.
Yeah, oh, and just having Death Shroud, all the vertical jumping, and if you fall, you can use Death Shroud. You won't die.
Oh, that's right. Booyah. Death Shroud for the win. Oh, yeah, because I always forget that Necros can base jump, and I die from falling from high places, and duh. Necro base jumping. I really need to remember that. It's kind of important.
I should be able to base jump with Infiltrator's arrow.
Yes.
That would actually be pretty awesome. If you could successfully... So what you're going to do is you're going to fall towards the ground, and since shadow stepping in Guild Wars is actually just physically moving somewhere really fast, you're going to accelerate to the ground to land safely.
That's the opposite of landing safely. I don't know if you know that.
How about if you accelerate,
It's science.
but go accelerate yourself upward against gravity to slow yourself down?
So you shoot Infiltrator's arrow up in the air, and then you're still and then you like move up. Okay, I could see you arguing that. I'll give you that one. So that'll be, I think that'll be fun. So we've got Sanctum Sprint. We also have Belcher's Bluff, which sounds like weird.
To me, it sounds like an extension of Costume Brawl, because they talk about seeking out challenges from around the world and then challenging your friends. And
but
this we know will be permanent content. The Sanctum Sprint is probably temporary.
There is an interesting thing about the seeking out challengers and their signature skills. You can learn those skills.
Oh, so like you go around the world looking for NPCs, and then once you beat them, you get their skills?
Yes. You gain access to their skills.
Okay.
No, they're for this mini game, and so when you meet up with your friend, you might have access to like 12 different skills. So you'll have to pick which of these skills you want, and you'll develop a meta, hopefully.
That's really interesting. That's to me more interesting than Costume Brawl, where you just buy this set of skills and then whoever bought whatever, but you have to actually go around and get it.
Yeah,
That sounds great.
I think that's very interesting. I look forward to seeing what that does, and I want to. And if it is like integrated into Costume Brawl, I want to see what the Bouquet of Roses does.
Sorry.
And they also have a zone-wide scavenger hunt, forcing you to utilize the crystal elements, which apparently help you move faster. So that could be quite interesting. Could be them experimenting with scavenger hunts?
They're getting ready to give us a scavenger hunt for precursors. They just want to do it right first.
I guess.
Maybe. We'll see. It sounds interesting. As long as it's not just like, I don't know, something boring, that'd be good.
Please don't tell us all the locations in our achievements. That would be sad.
They are adding a new
Put stars on the
resource.
map.
Yeah. They are adding a new resource node to the game, sort of, it sounds like, called a personal quartz node. And when you complete the meta achievement for the Bazaar of the Four Winds, you will have access to this node in your home instance. That's interesting.
I'd want to know, and if ArenaNet wants to chime in and let me know.
Yeah, Chris Whiteside, if you're watching, which he follows us, he knows this show is on right now. Wink, wink, internet? I don't know. Anyways, please continue, Evie.
I want to know if this personal quartz node will be active on all my characters, and if I would be able to loot, quote, quote, it with all of them, even if they are below a certain level, because achievements are account-wide. And if that is the case, please don't ban me when I do it. That's all I ask.
I would think it would be account-wide, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't account for that. So I hope they don't start banning people for that, because that would just be silly.
Yeah, that would be kind of weird. Maybe you have to be like a certain distance in your living story to unlock it. So you have to have a whole bunch of level 80s who have completed the living story.
I mean, then...
No, that would be a terrible...
You have how many 80s? One of each profession?
Yes, I do.
And I have 2 accounts with 80s on each. Oh no, then I have to get the achievement twice. But,
like, I know people that have 15 80s. So...
Wow. Oh, they played every single story choice possible. Wow, that's hardcore. I'm not sure if I should applaud them or be terrified of, like, what they've done with their lives, what they've done with themselves. I mean, to play through that much living story, there's books. You can read books. They're good. They have somewhat better story than the living story. Like, to subject yourself to that much living story is... Because if you're
doing... If you just want to see all the options. I mean, there are people like that.
I guess, but they... Wow. I couldn't do that. That's rough. I'm impressed. So the rewards are quite a bit different now, actually, in it. Apparently, I'm also too close to the microphone. Someone actually texted me. Am I breaking your guys' ears in chat? Is that happening? I don't know. We'll find out. Mm-hmm. So, there's rewards for this chat. Chat. There's not rewards for this chat, aside from our dulcet voices. There's rewards for this that they've talked about. What sorts of rewards are there, Spirit?
So, at least that we've seen... There are new back piece skins, which at this point does not surprise me anymore. There's always back piece skin.
I'm not going to complain.
They're dream catchers, which is pretty cool. That's something I'll be after because it looks awesome. Doing the Lessons of the Sky zone-wide scavenger hunt will get you a mini model of the Zephyr Sanctum.
Okay, what? I'm trying to figure out what they're doing with that. What is this thing? Do we have any concept of what it is and how it functions?
Zephyr Sanctum seems to be the place where Bazaar of the Four Winds takes place. I'm not necessarily sure on what that is, but the model is supposed to be so that you can see it once it's gone away. To my mind, it's... If you do the achievement and enjoy it, then, I don't know, maybe it opens up an instance and you can revisit it. I'm not sure what this means, but what they've said is it's a way of seeing content that's gone. If it is, then that's great because you can go back to it, but at the same time, and it removes that sort of like, oh, you weren't here to enjoy all of it, you can go revisit it.
Yeah.
But,
well, if they weren't there in the first place.
Yeah, they don't get that, which doesn't... Yeah. Makes sense to me.
So it's probably you can just look at it, I would suspect. It's interesting because what it does is there's been a bunch of things that you've gotten that have been sort of exclusive rewards that your character can wear or have like follow them around or something. This is sort of an interesting like thing that you can just plant. It's almost like getting a battle standard that you can plant in the ground and be like, I was there. Do you remember? Then you turn to your friend and you're like, you remember back in the day when the Bazaar of the Four Winds showed up? We were there. Plant down your little Bazaar of the Four Winds, and then he plants it down. You're like, yeah, Four Winds, bro. Yo.
It's like me with my Argent Tabard in WoW that I can click and have Holy Nova as a rogue. I'm just like, you can't do this because you weren't around when I was. Eat it.
I actually have that on my shaman. What's up now?
Your WoW terminology means nothing to me.
But it's a similar concept though. It's an exclusive time locked reward. Yeah, I like it. I think that's interesting, and it's not necessarily game changing, but there are some game changing things coming, especially to the achievement system. Tell us about that, Evie.
So there's this thing. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that. Okay, so when Laurels came out back in
The day.
Yeah, let's just say back in the day.
It's been about 5 months. It was like 2 months after launch. No, it was a January patch, wasn't it? February patch.
No.
It was the February patch. I remember it was on February 28th is because you could get 2 laurels and people were getting like the first monthly as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have access to the game for like 2 days and I was like, no.
Well, when they announced the Laurels, they also said that they were eventually going to do a system that would retroactively reward players for achievements that weren't the daily and monthly. They're finally putting that system in place. We're not sure yet if it actually does reward Laurels, and then you use the Laurels on whatever, the new rewards are, or if getting certain achievements will give you certain rewards, or certain achievement points, like tiers, like 1,000 points, 2,000, such and so forth, will give you, certain tiers of what is available, or if you just straight up spend achievement points to unlock certain things. What we do know is that there's going to be a system in place to retroactively, reward players for all the achievements that they can get.
I hear that the first achievement you can get is a siege turtle that you can ride. Is that correct?
And
No,
put
you're
on
full
its
of
back
falsehoods and
to free
sadness.
it.
Oh. Why would you... You are a horrible person, you crazy turtle killers. Anyways, Kha'Zix! Hey, that actually fits. What are some of the rewards that they're showing off?
If you look at the screenshots on the gallery page, this is speculation.
All right, I think I can actually bring that up. Let's do this thing.
Why don't you talk about it while he starts getting that, Evie?
Okay. It says there's going to be new weapons and new armor. If you go down to the bottom of this page and look at the screenshots, there's a new weapon that is a staff. There's some new armor. Well,
also, that is an amazing... What do you guys in chat think about this? And what do you guys think about the staff, actually? It looks fantastic, I think.
I think it's legendary.
It kind of does.
Well, first of all, there's no rainbows on it. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And you know that those like little pieces of rock are just floating around.
Oh, yeah.
And there's like lightning and stuff, and it's like...
That is brilliant. Okay, here's a question. Do you think it causes the sparkles that we're seeing, or do you think they just found a place where that happens?
I think it actually causes the sparkles.
That's
because
pretty
the
cool.
next picture looks to be in the exact same place, and it's not there.
That's a good point. And that is really glowy armor. Do you think that's just oversaturation, or...
No, it's clearly... Yeah, it's clearly coming from the armor.
Yeah, that actually looks pretty cool. So, interesting thing here is we have a very Dwayne-esque armor. In fact, you can see the wings coming off of it. You've got the glowing light, And then we move on to the next one. Balthazar, instant. Or, what were you thinking, Kate?
The headpiece reminds me of Abaddon a lot.
There's a lot of eyes on it.
Yeah,
what?
Did Abaddon only have 6? That's right.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, 6.
What's interesting is, Evie, you actually mentioned this before. We're seeing that what he's currently wearing is he's wearing the Citadel Flame armor, chest piece, leg piece, boots, but the gloves, shoulder, and helmet, just like on this other character, gloves, shoulder, helmet, are what exist. Do you think that they don't have like a piece of armor for that, or why do you think that there is? Why do you think it's just those 3 pieces?
Because that's what we can hide. I was actually really confused as to why they gave people an option to hide their gloves. And then this comes around and I'm just like, oh, that's why. Makes perfect sense now. Because you can slap tons and tons of particle effects on gloves. And there it is.
That is pretty cool looking. I have to say, I'm a huge fan of those. Do we know how we're going to be getting those? Oh, right. Achievement.
Theoretically.
That is fantastic if that's the way that we get those, because that is...
No, we haven't talked about Ascended Gear, have we?
We have
not. I have a theory that these pieces are our first Ascended armor pieces.
You think they're going to give us Ascended armor through achievement points? How many achievement points do you think that would be worth, then?
I don't know, but it's been consistent that they've added it through, like, Ascended armor has been stuff you've earned through playing a lot. It's been it's you would think it would be flashier because it's kind of the top tier armor. It's the first armor we've really seen with like this crazy particle effects. There's been a little bit, but this is the first to this extent that we've seen.
And as
they're only releasing a few pieces of it at once.
Yeah.
I think it's, and also in the description for the achievement points, they talk about powerful items. What does that mean? Because we've been on a scale of, these are the tiers we have, and if you have the max tier, you're going to be even with everyone else. What does powerful items mean? That's how I chose to interpret it, but I could be completely wrong, so don't take that as...
No, that's the same way I took it. I mean, if they're going to add Ascended armor, I mean, this is like a bland, this is probably how they're doing it.
But Hunter was saying something about dailies for maybe that how we...
Well, that's...
Please elaborate in chat, Hunter. Yeah.
Well, dailies was how we got our
necklaces or amulets.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's true. And that was sort of pseudo achievement based because you had to complete those. Okay, yeah, ascended items through dailies through laurels. That makes sense then that you would get them in that. Do you think they might add them to the VW chests?
Ascended armor pieces?
Yeah.
Maybe specifically high level chests.
Yeah.
If they could figure out how to do that, but like low level ones, no.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So that'll be really interesting. I'm kind of hoping. I'm looking forward to this patch. It seems like they've added a lot into it, and that what they're doing is now that they have. It seems like they've sort of hit their stride. And this is one thing that Chris Whiteside said in. Am I saying his name right? Chris Whiteside?
Yep.
Said in a interview with MMORPG.com is that what they have now is they have 4 dedicated teams to live content who have sort of figured out how to implement live content, and each team has released 1 or 2 releases now so that they're comfortable releasing it, and they have a system and they have a administrative structure in place to run that and to keep that going and to keep the living world going. What this has done is it has freed up resources in management and in coding and that sort to get on to fixing other things. So we're probably going to see a lot of the quality of life things. I mean, they've been doing little quality of life things. We're probably going to see a lot more of them coming in, which should be really interesting. I wouldn't be surprised to see within the next few months the scavenger hunt actually showing up, seeing tweaks to camera, I'm really fascinated by the Colin Johansson teasing saying that they're going to make blue and green items more useful. How would you do that?
Really?
Spirit, Eevee? I mean, yeah, they're like going to make them more functional in game, like so that you actually get a blue and you're like, I got a blue, and you're like, well, I got like 300 blues, but I have one now. What would
maybe just increase like the base, like it's more desirous to have a blue, like it's closer to you know how they have it spread out, like a rare is 5% higher than a green, whatever the distribution is.
It's a lot more than
move them up
5%, I
a
think.
tier. I don't understand, but then it doesn't remedy it at 80 anyway. So
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what they're thinking. Eevee.
Make it so that when you put 4 of a specific thing, like 4 blues in the Mystic Forge, will give you a green. 4 greens will give you a yellow. 4 yellows will give you an exotic.
if they took that element of randomness out, I would definitely be. It would definitely make those items more coveted. That's
Except for the fact that, holy smokes, the exotic market would crash overnight.
Well,
So
it's not already that high.
Yeah,
You
but
can
no, it
pretty
would.
much- like the low end exotics are all about a gold.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, that's like the exotics that you don't really want to put on your character either. That's like your
Right. I guess it's the skins, but won't it
just make it where
it'll
they
never
have
drop
basic
below-
exotics. The
Yeah.
stats are there, but the skins aren't.
It could be interesting to see how that works. Personally, I think it would be good because I like that idea because it would allow us to gear up characters more effectively, and it would. I don't think exotics are much of a grind right now. Once you have 1 or 2 characters under your belt, you just hit your next character to 80, and you're like, okay, buying exotics. That's pretty much how I do things now. So my guardian
Unless you
just
broke like me.
my guardian, yeah, I guess. But man, what do you spend your money on? Like I spend my money on completely frivolous things, and I still had enough to kit my guardian
It's
out.
not that I spend my money on stuff. I'm so sorry about the laugh track. He's laughing at how poor I am. It's not that I spend money. It's that I don't get any because I don't farm. I do not grind. I do not farm. That's just, it does not happen. I play the game when I can play with other people and we're doing fun stuff. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. And you can run dungeons and stuff and eventually gear up. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. And you can run dungeons and rares, and you're not necessarily horridly incompetent. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with the entire systems that are coming out, and now that they have those 4 teams. And I think that is pretty much all of the new news that they have. Do you guys have anything else that you want to bring up? Anything else that I missed or that we did not talk about? I mean, we've covered Sky Pirates, the awesome new dungeon, the jumping puzzle. There was the interviews that are fantastic, lots of PvP, and new updates that are coming up. Ton of stuff.
Yep. Just real quick, the one thing I wanted to hit on still was, this is a direct quote from Chris Whiteside. He said, this patch, the Bazaar of the Four Winds even, will unfold stuff much further down the line that might change how creatures or elementals react to the players.
Oh, that is...
Elementals specifically because we know in Garenhof stuff about the Wizard's Tower, so changing how elementals react to the player is kind of interesting. We've never really seen elementals as a faction or like anything we need to really be worried about. So I thought that was an interesting quote.
Just to clarify, we do know that djinns are elementals, are higher intelligence elementals. You know how we learned that? Because I asked it in that interview a long time ago and they answered it. Anyways.
It's very good. That was my
that is the appropriate response. That is interesting.
Is actually just a bunch of djinn.
That could actually be fantastic. I love djinn. They're awesome. Zamoros knows that they're there, and he's not telling us. Zamoros.
It's not Barada like I thought it was.
As Hunter says, yes, I am super humble. No. Nice call, Hunter. Anyways, one thing that I was thinking actually when I read that is, what if they added elemental extractors? Like a 4th harvesting tool. You kill an elemental, and you extract its essence, and you get a higher chance at dust based on the level range, and lodestones and shards based on the level range.
Oh, I would love that, but I don't think we're going to see that.
Just make it really expensive. Make it so it's like 4 silver to like for 1 use, or for like 10
no
uses.
More gold things. No.
No.
I'm poo-pooing your idea.
Yeah.
It wouldn't necessarily, but it would give you a higher chance at lodestones, so you could get your lodestones faster. It would just still cost you a lot, but you get them faster.
At that point, why not just buy them? It's probably worth, like, anyone besides charged, it would be,
That's a good point.
like, worth.
Everyone would be like sitting there,
Vital.
like vacuuming up the lightning elementals. That'd be hilarious.
Get a Roomba. That's what we need.
Yep. All right. Well.
Elemental Roomba.
All right, I think that is pretty much everything that we've got for tonight. All the cool stuff that's going on Guild Wars. We're definitely going to have to go do that or play quite a bit, and hopefully we will see you guys in game. Have a good evening. Take it easy.